Hi, this is the whole spiel. This is what we know so far about that memo that everyone's talking about and what's in it. I've got the entire interview by a former federal prosecutor, and his name is Joe diGeneva, and I've got a little bit of information, a little preview to it before that. Okay, they said Trump would undermine our sacred institutions, but the greatest undermining of institution is by Obama and Hillary Clinton supporters. 50,000 of these text messages were exchanged, all except, we have the 50,000, all except between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, all except 5 months. 5 months were missing, which included text messages from the office meeting of the acting director of the CIA, Andrew McCabe, right in his office, about we need an insurance policy just in case Trump gets elected, and calling Trump effing Trump. Awful. And we have Sally Yates, the Attorney General, which she was the acting Attorney General. She worked under Obama, who was grandstanding, and she stood in the way of President Trump's halting of immigration from certain Islamic countries. And, you know, the CIA and FBI is full of never-Trumpers. This is a real problem that we have. Okay, all texts are kept in these agencies because you can be subpoenaed at any time and called to testify in court. So all these text messages are kept. These are the highest agencies in the land, the CIA and the FBI. They have to keep all these text messages because they can subpoena anyone at any time to testify in court about anything that's in any of these text messages. There's no way these institutions would lose these communications. This is very important. What strikes me is that since they know their communications are kept and seen by anyone in these agencies, they openly communicated about an insurance policy, knowing they could get caught by someone with ethics if they were pro-Hillary. Even if they were pro-Hillary, somebody with ethics. Wait, I take that back. That would be impossible. Everything we know about Hillary. But anybody in these agencies could have caught any of these communications, and they could have told someone about it. But the scary thing is that nobody in these agencies told anyone about these communications. Okay, hold on a second. Okay. This tells me that there is no one at these agencies, no one that has ethics. These agencies are completely corrupt. Missing texts, there are missing texts that suddenly disappeared. And we learned about this today. They suddenly disappeared from December 4th, 2016, right after the election, when the S was hitting the fan, and the end at May 17th. So we're missing between these two exact dates. This is where the missing texts are coming in. Why is my light doing that? I don't know. Okay, what happened then? Why that particular date? Well, that is when the Mueller investigation started. They did not want their communications to be seen by Mueller. What was in those texts that they didn't want Mueller to see? Unless if Mueller is in cahoots, and we know he is because he is a part of the Iranian One dossier scandal. Legally, and I know a little bit about how these things work. I was a legal assistant at one time. that if it came out that Mueller knew what was in these texts are considered physical evidence, then Mueller would be seen as complicit. In the legal world, you cannot tell your lawyer certain things. They will stop you and say, don't tell me, because they are under obligation to tell the court. They can just say, I have no knowledge of it and I have never had any knowledge of it. Everything that was said was off the record, in person, not through telephone, text, email, possibly paper, because that can be burned. Letters are the only thing. That is why we have no typewriters anymore that you can destroy. Notice that most people have totally given up our typewriters, and even all the stuff we need to buy to keep those typewriters going is because that way the NSA can have a record, because it's easier for us, so we just gave it up, right? The NSA has a record of everything. See, if you have something that's written on paper and you get it, it can be destroyed immediately because it's against the law. If something goes through the mail, since it's federal, and you open up someone else's mail or destroy it, that's a federal crime. So you kind of wonder why people have given up writing letters. Basically, the only thing we do is send a card, but now there's e-cards. So the government even knows about the e-cards. Now, the NSA has all these texts. They're not lost. They're not lost in a glitch. That's baloney. The dates are too coincidental. I mean, ending on May 17th, the exact day that Mueller was appointed, that's too coincidental. This is baloney. The NSA has all these texts. So if they say they don't have it, they can't turn it over, that's baloney, because they have it. No way, in the way they have devised, that anything is lost. They have it, and Trump can and should demand that they be released. They have told him to stay out of it because of the Mueller investigation. But at this point, he should fire Mueller and open a completely unbiased investigation. Then add Mueller to the investigation. Then investigate Mueller. Should we see if in fact that the dossier was used as probable cause of the basis of the investigation of the Trump campaign, it would mean that the media was working with the deep state apparatus in the Department of Justice and the Hillary Clinton campaign, and took the spying of the United States, as it were, on the hunt for a criminal investigation. If by running a counterintelligence investigation, spying, somehow if the people in charge had gotten information, kryptonite as it were, it would have leaked out by now. If Trump used a racial slur on tape, then they would have released it to the press. It would have been all lights out for Trump, literally. Flynn was leaked into the press, then he was charged. Nothing that was discussed was a big deal, but it made him look like a liar. Classified doesn't matter. They make a mockery of classified. When there's a Republican president, you get deeply damaging leaks in a way that would embarrass the president. Remember, there was none for Obama? There is leak bias. Where there are damaging leaks, were there any damaging leaks about Obama? Absolutely not. The opposite is true. Government is actually helping out cover things up. Remember the IRS servers, or that whole Tea Party movement, and they called them all racist? Well, you know, remember they audited conservative organizations. You know, Lois Lerner should have been charged with that. Well, you know, the IRS servers were just magically destroyed in that event. They mechanically destroyed the hard drive to get rid of that evidence. Hillary Clinton acid washed her hard drives. The dates are too far coincidental to be a glitch. And there's Schiff's FISA memo. We have the right to know. The notion that the secrecy outweighs anything at all is ridiculous. A lot of stuff that is marked secret isn't really secret at all. I kind of knew that. How did you get the information is a much bigger deal. Confidential assessment, something like heavy drinking at the Super Bowl. That would be, a lot of stuff is overclassified. So even something like heavy drinking at the Super Bowl would be considered classified. Anyway, on to this extraordinary interview, which if you haven't seen in full on television, I'm not sure if it even was on television or you weren't able to get it over the internet, I've actually typed the whole thing up. Like I said, I used to be a legal assistant. So I typed the whole thing up and I'm going to present it to you. Remember, and I'm telling everyone out there that could possibly hear this, if this falls out of the news cycle, call your congressman, make noise. Don't let them forget it. We need the stuff that's in this memo, we needed it exposed. Finally, we should get some unbiased leadership, an unbiased government. And they should treat both parties the same or throw them out. I say throw both parties out. Okay, here it is. The Obama administration's brazen plot to exonerate Hillary Clinton starting to leak out, according to former federal prosecutor. The FBI used to spy on the Russians. This time they spied on us. This story is about a brazen plot, a clear violation of the law to exonerate Hillary Clinton with regard to the way she handled classified information with her private server. Absolutely a crime. Absolutely a felony. As the Inspector General is trying to do, why Comey and the senior DOJ officials conducted a fake investigation of Hillary Clinton, followed none of the regular rules, gave her every break in the book, immunized all kinds of people, allowed the destruction of evidence, no grand jury, no subpoenas, no search warrant. That's not an investigation. That's a Potemkin village. It's a farce, and everybody knew it. The problem was, she didn't win. And because she didn't win, the farce became a very serious opera. It wasn't a comic opera anymore. It was a tragic opera, and she was going to be the focus. What this is about is a cleansing of the FBI and the upper departments of justice. We're going to discover that the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, her deputy, Sally Yates, the head of the National Security Division, John Carlin, Bruce Orr, and other senior DOJ officials, and regrettably lying attorneys, people who are senior career civil servants, all violated the law, committed crimes, covered up crimes of a presidential candidate. But more than that, they tried to frame an incoming president with a false Russian conspiracy that never existed. They knew it, and they plotted to ruin him as a candidate and destroy him as a president. That is why this is important. Connecting the dots is important because the FBI now has to be completely reconstructed from the ground up. The people at the Bureau are great people, but that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about people like James Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Page, Baker, and Pristep, a name nobody knows. He's the head of the Counterintelligence Division, and he was involved in planning this entire crazy thing involving Fusion GPS, the false dossier, and creating evidence. This is what people need to understand, is that by working with GPS and by giving highly classified information which Fusion had no legal right to see, they needed to create something they could give to the court, the Foreign Intelligence Court, so they could get wiretaps and surveillance taps and email taps and phone taps on the Trump people. So if there was anything, they could find it out. But there was nothing. There was never anything. They created false facts so they could get surveillance warrants. Those are all crimes. And I've stated this before. There is nothing. There never has been anything. And the proof is the fake Russian dossier that we knew Clinton paid to make up. This is the proof that if there was anything out there that was negative in any way about Trump, they would have found it and told us about it. Trump's entire life has been in front of our eyes. His divorces, his bankruptcies, every African-American actor, boxer, civil rights leader who loved him from day one, we saw this. Every politician who took money from him and didn't think he was a racist or a Nazi. That should be proof enough. It is the politicians and their sexual assault, taxpayer-funded payouts we didn't know about. Now there's the real crime. We even knew about the casting couch, and we acted surprised. It was the nefarious, illegal activities of Hillary Clinton and Obama that we were in the dark about. We knew some, and the media and Hollywood covered up the rest. Trump is probably the cleanest of all politicians we have ever had. If you have forgiven him for what you do know, then there's nothing left to tell. And that's a personal statement to our president and his supporters. Okay, every single one of those things is a crime because it was done not for a legitimate law enforcement reason, not for national security reasons, but to create a false case against a candidate, a president-elect, and a president, Donald Trump. FISA Court Opinion of April 27th, 2017. This document was just released today. Outlines a series of illegal disclosures to contractors. It's believed that those contractors with Fusion GPS and CrowdStrike was the company that was used to bleach Hillary Clinton's computer. CrowdStrike was given access to raw 702 incidental collection of surveillance of American citizens under FISA warrants. If that is true, they've committed crimes. The Bureau who gave them the information have committed crimes. There is a huge civil liability for CrowdStrike and FBI officials. 2 lawsuits pending, one against Mr. Steele, the MI6 agent who wrote the dossier, at the payment of Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS has been sued. If these facts come out from the FISA court, they will all be sued. People don't realize that this is on the public record. These things happened. The question that has been blacked out from this official opinion, this document that came out today, are the names of the contractors and the names of the FBI and DOJ officials. But that is going to come out. That is what Nunes has. He has the information right now. Once you do constitutional oversight, those blanks go away to Congress, and we will know shortly who the private contractors were who were allowed to break the law by the FBI. When Comey went to visit Trump at the White House about the Flynn case, remember, the president is president at that point. There was no reason for Comey to be doing anything. Comey went on his own and told the president about the dossier. Why would an FBI director tell the president about this salacious document, which there was no evidence and no validity, that Comey testified under oath as being such? He was playing J. Edgar Hoover. He was blackmailing the President of the United States. I know all about this. I will never say anything about this, of course, but if it gets out, it's going to be awful. So Comey said, I know that's how he blackmailed him. If this gets out, this is just going to be awful. Do you want me to stay in my job? Blackmail. So you better have me stay in my position, so I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet about this salacious material, this dossier that he knew was fake, and he was trying to make Trump believe that this was going to come out, and people were going to believe this dossier, and he would be destroyed, not just as a president, but as a human being. And it was disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Comey is a person so devoid of moral compass. He described himself as Thomas Becket. He's not Thomas Becket. He's the assassin, Henry II, who killed Becket. Thomas Becket, at the time that Thomas Becket was the Archbishop, and at that time England was Catholic. And you see, Thomas Becket and Henry II were very good friends. And Henry II thought if he made his best friend the Archbishop, then Henry II, this is so political, could get away with anything. He wouldn't have the Catholic Church standing in his way. He could make any law and make anyone follow any law, and he could get away with anything he wanted to get away with. Because Thomas Becket, his best friend as the Archbishop, would let him. Thomas Becket, when he became the Archbishop, had a revelation of God and said no to the king. I'm sorry, it's choking me up. He said no to the king. He wouldn't do it. And so the king had him assassinated in the church when he was praying. So no, Comey is not Thomas Becket and never will be. And it is a shame that we don't have someone like Thomas Becket. But we never will. Anyway, the question of Fusion GPS paying journalists to go out and promote this story is the complete antithesis of journalism. We don't do that in this country. But if they did, and it is pretty clear that they paid a lot of money to a lot of people, some journalists, and there is no doubt about that, that is a scandal of immense proportion for the American journalism community, who seem to care very little about that. The only thing the American journalism community seems to care about is destroying Donald Trump. It is fascinating that the same people who cared about the integrity of the government institutions, journalistic, and Watergate, could care less about them now. because it is another Republican who is being destroyed. This is as bad as it gets when you have the FBI and the DOJ being corrupted because of their motivations, and you have the journalistic communities being bought. That is pretty bad for all of the institutions involved. Journalism is below Congress as far as their approval rating, and that isn't going to help them at all. It isn't saying much either. The reason GPS fought the House Intelligence Committee subpoena, not because who their clients were, they were protecting the people they paid. They can pay whoever they want. They are not a government institution. The reason why they fought the government subpoena was to protect people they paid for information. There are reports, they say, that paid a number of people to spread the fake dossier. The House has all those records. They have been reviewed by Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Committee, starting next week. He will start briefing individual members of the House in closed-door sessions, and what will leak out is who GPS paid. What is clear is that GPS is a private intelligence service. They sold their service to the highest bidder, the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee, and eventually the FBI, which used them and bootstrapped their information into FISA applications. They became an arm of the conspiracy willingly and knowingly, and they engaged in activity that was clearly designed to destroy a human being. Comey, one of the few true things he said in his testimony was that Carter Page took a perfectly legal trip to Russia. The people who want to defend the FBI, DOJ, and the Clintons have turned into a series of narratives to replace the truth. For example, when Trump said he was spied on by the President of the United States, Obama, he was laughed at. In fact, he was spied on by Barack Obama, the President of the United States, and by John Brennan, Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, and Susan Rice, National Security Advisor, and the Deputy Security Advisor, Ben Rhodes. What they did was part of a scheme that began in the year 2016, was to try to get Hillary Clinton elected by exonerating her in her email scandal and her private server in New York. And she would get elected, and the problem of Donald Trump would just go away. The problem was that she lost. Then they had time from the election and the time he was inaugurated to do damage, to cover up what they had done with Fusion GPS and make it perfect after the election, to secure the story. There are heroes in this story: Fusion GPS, Steele, or his wife, employee of GPS, and a Russian. When the knowledge of it got stronger, then the dossier wasn't important. Because Papadopoulos got this whole thing started, because he let go information in a bar, drunk, to an Australian ambassador who told MI16 in London there was a brazen plot to exonerate Hillary Clinton and accuse Donald Trump of a false crime. So to say that Papadopoulos, got drunk one night and blabbed the stuff that was in the dossier, blabbed all this stuff, and some Australian ambassador heard it and then told MI16 in London. Right, okay. The hero here, there are heroes here, and the hero here is Admiral Mike Rogers, head of the NSA, in 2014. In 2015, one of the auditors came to him and said, that there are some funny things going on with the FBI electronics surveillance, Signet, a masterpiece from World War II. With regard to 2702, which allows the scooping up of phone data and email data about foreigners and incidental collection of Americans that should be kept secret, but it wasn't because of the conduct of the FBI and the Obama administration and JD officials. Mike Rogers says, let's do an audit. He does this in March of 2016, way in advance of the election. Then he discovers that the FBI has been sharing this secret information with not one of the government agencies, but with private contractors. Some of those contractors work for the DNC, some GPS. Mr. Rogers says okay to the FISA court and notifies the FISA court that they have been lied to. They have not been told about this. They have not seen this. So Rogers goes to the court on his own. The DOJ learns about it and goes to the court first and informs them about illegal activity. In April of 2016, issues this 99-page opinion. It describes illegal activity of the FBI contractors and calls it the improper disclosure of Americans to unauthorized individuals. All of those are crimes. This was just declassified. No one has heard about this yet. With this in hand, and remember, Rogers knows all about this before the election, so as soon as the election is held, Rogers goes to Trump. He knows that Trump was the victim of a plot, so he visits him in New York in November of 2016, the 17th to be exact. He briefs the president. The very next day, Trump moves his entire staff to his golf course in New Jersey. That is why Trump said he was wiretapped. Rogers briefed him, and Trump knew what happened. When the Barack Obama administration found out what Rogers had done, the DNI director of National Intelligence, told Barack Obama. Barack Obama said it was too late, because that would be the story of my last days when I was in office. The end of the story won't be this crazy man Mueller or Nunes who stood against personal attacks. It will be shown that Admiral Rogers saved the day. In October of 2016, Admiral Rogers went to the court and said that the DOJ had unwittingly submitted false documents. Plans were made to fire him. All of this has come to a head, and the court has learned about this activity. It was lied to systematically. This is where we are today. Nunes has discovered this back in March, when the incoming National Security Division and the person who was responsible for signing the pleadings was a fellow named John Carlin. Once this information was turned over to him, revealing the violation of the law, Carlin resigned and has not been heard from since. No one could figure out why Carlin resigned. It may have been because he didn't want to be questioned by the Attorney General, who at that point had begun an investigation of the FBI and the DOJ senior people based on Admiral Rogers' complaints. That is another story that is going to play out. Where is John Carlin, and what is he doing? This is the beauty of the false accusation. The lie goes around the world, and the truth takes a long time to catch up. The Russian collusion was a complete fabrication of the DNC, Clinton campaign, Fusion GPS, and senior DOJ, and the FBI officials to create a way to dirty up Trump as a candidate and then destroy him as president. And there is literally no evidence of this. The appointment of the special counsel was completely unnecessary. I don't know why Rod Rosenstein did it, but he did it. I said in a past video that Rosenstein and Sessions were Trump's Achilles heel. In fact, in Mueller's appointment letter and memorandum about it, he admits there is no crime that has been discovered, but for political reasons, this needs to be investigated. That's nonsense. Look what he has done to the country. Look what he has done to an incoming president. That should have been handed off to a bunch of senior DOJ officials who were being monitored by a political appointee who would keep them in the legitimate bounds of an investigation. Mueller has not brought one charge of collusion with Russians. He will never, because there was none. Manafort's activities predate Trump by years. Flynn's charge is a ludicrous charge. I know why he did it. Flynn was indicted for lying to the FBI about conduct that was completely legal. Talking to Russians or anybody overseas was completely legal. He could have done that when he was an employee of the campaign. Papadopoulos lied to the FBI about perfectly legal conduct. Anybody can talk to anybody overseas. If he took money, then they have to report it. The bottom line is, Mueller and the way he has conducted his investigation is an embarrassment to anyone who has been in special counsel, which is the man during this interview, Joe diGeneva. Hiring all these partisan Democrats to be on the special counsel. Mueller isn't dumb. These people aren't biased against the president. They have an animus against the president. There is a distinct difference. Mueller's entire investigation has been tainted by this animus. There is no way you can have people who have donated to the Clintons, who have donated to Obama, represented the Clintons, represented individuals in their criminal investigations. They have people who have given to President Trump's opponent to investigate President Trump. I don't know what Mueller is thinking of. Mueller is thinking of. Sorry. Does the guy really deserve for me to say his name correctly? You know what I'm talking about. Okay. Mueller, Comey, Rosenstein were all involved in an Obama-Clinton-Russia collusion story. Mueller should never have been appointed because there was no need for one. 2, he never should have been appointed because he knows James Comey. They are personal and professional friends and have been so for many years. Comey is a target of this investigation. He has clearly been involved in activities which could be deemed illegal and criminal. There is no way Mueller can investigate him or anybody else of the senior people that he worked with. And yet here he is investigating Russian collusion when he presided over, as FBI director, the investigation of Uranium One, which was a clear kickback bribery scheme by the Russians to bribe Bill Clinton, ex-president, with speech money, to bribe Hillary Clinton with speech money for her husband, and $145 million to the Clinton Foundation, and get the result of selling 20% of the uranium supply of the U.S. to a Russian-controlled company. The notion that Mueller could investigate that, having been a party of the investigation, is ridiculous. But here's the other thing. Mueller, who was FBI director at the time, knew of the Uranium One investigation of corruption and bribery, did he go to tell Comey or anybody at the Justice Department that this case was under investigation and they should warn CIFAS, the committee that approves foreign activities? Did he go to tell someone who sits on CIFAS like Eric Holder? And Eric Holder said something like, "I don't think that's relevant to the sale of the Uranium One." Or did Eric Holder say, "Okay, fine, I'll let him know"? We do not know what CIFAS was told about Uranium One. There have been public reports that they were told nothing about it. And here's the other part about this. If Mueller knew about this, why didn't he go to CIFAS on his own and say, "I don't know, but I'm going to tell you that this is pretty serious and you need to know about it"? He didn't do that. We are left with a nagging sensation that these really great investigators lose all their skills and nobody talks to anybody about Uranium One. The other thing is everybody says in defense of Hillary Clinton that she was only one of 9. They forget the most important part of all. It only takes one to stop a deal. She was bought by Russia. She knew about the bribery deal. She wasn't going to stop it. Her husband was involved in it. She could have stopped the Uranium One sale with one vote. That's all it takes in CIFAS. If one member of CIFAS, one of the 9, says no, then it's done. So the answer isn't she was only one of 9, but rather she was one of 9. She didn't stop it. It is important for the House to complete its work now before the Dems take the House. That will be a disaster. If they did, it wouldn't work. In the Senate, you need 67 votes to convict. So let's hope things turn out well in November's election. Thank you for staying with me and listening to this. This is a report. This opinion came out today, was finally declassified today, and it pretty much tells you what's in that memo that we're all wondering about. And let's hope justice is done, and we have got a good man in the White House. We really do. And remember, one little kiss from Felina.